Echo Lima 87. This is 100 watts and a wire.
Well, here we go again. Hello and welcome to 100 watts and a wire. I'm not going to keep him long at all. Look, I got to get him up in here. It's contractually within the first 10 seconds. I must be on the show. And he throws an ascot and a scarf over, depending on the season and how things are going in Washington State. Steve, W7UDI, my brother, is back here. And it feels like we have... We've made a full circle in some ways, and it happens on the last night of the year. Go figure. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Christian. I'm good. How about yourself?
Well, that's a loaded question there. I just spent the last 25 minutes talking to my therapist, which is Steve, W7UDI. And another thing. Would you believe this? But I think, we can catch up like that. We've spent, I think we're heading into our 10th season here with the show, and over the last 6 months we've managed to just snap them off because it was so irregular in terms of like when we could get together. It was like, don't even bother them. And I got to say, the team here, like Steve and Scotty and a few of our regulars that you see a lot, Pastor Joe, he's always kind of been an advisor. I tell Pastor Joe, like, pray for me every day. Put me on the prayer list every day, twice on Sundays. And then he'd be like, great, you want to talk about? No, just get to praying. Just go over there and start praying now. Don't you have keys to the place or whatever? It's great to have a pastor in the community. But point being is that these and I've seen this in other people's lives. When we got started here, I used to hear, and I'd say, Steve, like, wow, this person has been gone for 20 years. And I raised a family. I went to work where I had a job change, and I had to put it down for a while, and I never really got it. And what I'm really trying to say is over the last 6 months, my friends have just said, like they always do, whenever you're ready, whenever things are right, just, do whatever you need to do. And when the time's right, we'll come back and do it. So a thank you to you, Steve, and Scotty, and our friends Don and Pastor Joe, and all the regulars that we see day to day who are around.
Oh my God!
What do you see? Are you hearing me? Uh-oh. Steve may not be hearing, but I hear you. I don't know. So anyway, if you're joining us live, welcome, and we'll bring. We've had some technical issues, but I was, to our listening audience and to our friends who are here today, the last 6 months have been one of those turbulent times in your life where we've had, here personally, we've had some loss with my father-in-law passing in early October. I'll bring Steve-O back in. Hopefully we're good. Are you still okay?
Yeah, I just kind of froze on this end. So.
Man, I was saying all the good things. It was like we were just about to hug, and I was going to give you the biggest hug, and you were like, I don't know what you're saying. I can't tell anything. What the hell is happening? But thank you to our team and the crew that are kind of just doing the nets every week and kind of keeping the original intent of 100 watts and a wire alive. That's Steve and Don. And Scotty, who is running FT8. Scotty can't join us tonight because he's doing a live gig playing the guitar. I'm doing the Yingwei, what's his name, Malstein? He's doing that at the club tonight. And he's getting over that virus that continues to go around. And but I think he's going to play tonight, which is cool. So thank you, Steve. Thank you to everybody who is... stuck it out. It's not Steve's first storm with me. I've had stretches of the artist with the ascot. I must go, Steve. I'm going to sail to Paris for a while. And he's like, okay, buddy, I'll see you when you get back. But anyway, go ahead, Steve. Thank you so much for hanging in there. And I know your life has been busy as well. And it just feels good to be back.
These last few months, even for myself, have been... really busy. And last quarter of the year always happens at work that just buttload of overtime and stuff. And And for these last few months, my only radio time has been during the nets. And I just haven't had a chance to break free and with other stuff and family obligations and work obligations. It was just kind of tough to get out, just to get on the radio and come into the shack. And it's like, oh, wow. I haven't been in here in a while. So it's been an interesting break, and I'm glad we're back and just happy to be here.
Yeah, we're getting a report that a little bit of reverb is on you, but I don't hear it. So I don't hear it. But thank you, James. I don't know where that would be coming from. I don't know. I don't hear it myself. So I'm too worried about it. We get to pushing buttons, he's going to disappear again. But thank you for that. Thank you. And hello. Yeah, I mean, just to recap, because I've been talking about it, it's been therapeutic in a way, but it's been a struggle for me over since June 5th, I was let go from my gig, my job. And I'd been there 12 and a half years. And my wife accepted a position in Sarasota. And so things kind of timed out great in terms of I could go with them. I didn't have to have my wife and children in another place while I worked in a different state looking for a job here, which could have been till now. Happy to report I did get hired on Tuesday. And I'm excited about that. We'll start on Tuesday and earning. But, man, I had applied for jobs, everything from the produce section to producing for NPR and everything in between. And remote jobs, like it was getting to the point where, I was starting to get down, man. It's like, you lose your gig, you lose your worth, and then it's like, this dude's in his early 50s now, and I'm like, is that a problem? Like, like the experience is a thing now. Like, I'm too old. Like, it was like, and so it can take you kind of like down. It took me at least down. Like it was heavy. And I told Steve I have not been drinking at all, except for a drink on maybe Wednesday of this week to celebrate the gig, and one with dinner tonight. And he said he hadn't had a drink in months either. Which is, you think like, well, damn, that's weird. But I was concerned mentally that if I started drinking during this really down period, I could go down a rough road, and I've got these kids and I've got to keep pushing. And I didn't need any more distractions. So I'm laying more out there than people might be interested in hearing about. But it is the intersection of life and amateur radio. I'm just grateful that something did pop up, which is cool. My people are around, and I needed it, Steve. I was telling Scotty and you and Pastor Joe, we have a little bit of a thread that we talk to each other in. It's important for my soul and my mental health that I get back with my people. Like I need to get back to the things I love. You mentioned not getting on the radio. Like I hadn't turned on the radio. I'd be sitting here at this desk like Groundhog Day, and it's look for jobs, apply for jobs, apply for jobs, look for jobs, apply for jobs, take a walk. It's like next day for 6 months. And I'm right here and I couldn't even turn it on. And there was a part I felt guilty about, like who can really participate in a hobby when you're not earning? It felt weird to me. So it's just a goofy mind trick, I think, and all of these words just to say, like, it's cool to be back. It's cool to be back with the people and see the people and do a show. So if you do have any questions or you're new around here, reach out, say hello. It's a friendly bunch of people. And Steve and I will take some questions later on that have been sitting in the queue and piling up that we need to get to. These people probably figured some of them out by now. They're probably like, I don't know, where are these guys coming back? But we have some questions to go through. Put a queue in front of your question tonight, and we'll pick it up. Now, I'm not trying to pry into your gig a little bit here, Steve, but you've been doing a bachelor thing for a little bit here. Like what's going on? Did you need to stay at work while Mama went and did something else?
So my wife retired, and so she wanted to be with the grandbabies and everything. So it worked out. It worked out good. That I was like, hey, just go. And it was just going to be for the Thanksgiving weekend kind of deal. And I just stay through Christmas. Just it's no big deal. We got three dogs that they need a lot of attention, and then I had all this work that needed to be done and take care of the house. So it was like, well, you go off, have fun, and I'll just stay back and take care of the homestead. And if you followed us on Discord, you know that Thanksgiving weekend I had a crappy weekend. Well, I had to. One of the things that kind of kept me away from the radio for a few days, and that was only for a few days, was I had to redo my drain field, and so that dug up the yard, and buddy of mine brought his excavator over, his Mini X, and we started trenching and laying, rebuilding the drain field, and it was literally a crappy weekend, but it was done. It needed to be done. It was one of those things, and so I've been just been minding and tending to the house, and I've had some super long work days, 16-hour plus days where I'd leave at 6 in the morning and get back close to midnight or 10 to 12 p.m. It was it's been busy here. So
well, good. See, you got to enjoy the summer while I was having a breakdown. You got to have a summer, and let's talk about the toilet and the problem. Is this a diet thing, Steve? What's going on here?
Jesus Christ!
Sorry, I mean it's been a while. We need to talk things through.
Yeah.
These massive
you
dumps.
know how it flows downhill.
Okay, all right, I got it. I did not have here what you had, but this house was built in 1948, and the old iron pipes are getting invaded by the root systems of these huge pine trees around here, and it's not flowing through. So there was a time where we're like talking to the landlady, like, and she's not here. She doesn't live in this state. Yeah, there's a problem. The stuff comes right up to the tip of the top of the bowl, and I'm like, I can see my mess right there. I'm like, we've got to figure this out. There's 2 rounds of this, 2 different separate lines of toilets. It's like everything that could possibly go wrong. However, yours looked like you were digging out main chunks of land, huge pipe. That didn't look like PVC pipe. That looked like big. It was
4-inch pipe. but basically the D box, distribution box that comes out of the tank and then splits everything off was made out of plastic, and the lid got cracked, and then dirt infiltrated, and then over the years infiltrated the infiltrators. I had an infiltrator system, and basically it just got full of dirt, and it was one of those that it needed to be replaced. So we've modernized it, and now I have a concrete D-box. So,
nice.
But that's getting deep into the poop.
Yeah, and Sheena reminds us that the brown trout talk is starting to make its way into the show. It feels like home. It's like putting on those old Levi's, and they're like, they don't really fit right, but they fit you, and they feel like home. I can do this with my legs and stretch out, and they don't look great, but they're on me. So here we are, 100 watts in a wire, and the brown trout. Mark says, sidecar, laying some pipe. Now, I don't know.
Yes, sir. Always laying pipe.
to the 1.01%. I put a question out there to our to the Hamley, asking them. I think it's nostalgic in a way. I don't know if it's age or what it is or just whatever it is. But I thought, here we are at the end of the year, and I'm curious to see how people found ham radio. How did you come to be? And I guess we can tell our stories a little bit first. I know yours, and I know you know mine, and we can share. We put it out on Discord. We put it out on Facebook, just to see how do you even came here. And everybody's got a little bit of a different story. Why don't you go first, Steve? Tell us how you found ham radio.
I was a young lad, a very, very young lad. I was in elementary school. And the elementary school wasn't too far from where I grew up in Pasadena, California. And I used to cut through a church to get down to the elementary school. And behind the church, there was this tower and this antenna. And I was kept wondering, what the heck was that? My buddies and I would, we'd point at it, look at it, and go, what is that? Oh, we don't know. We don't know. Well, one day, the old man was kind of in the backyard, and I went, hey, I'm going to go ask him. My buddy said, no, we won't. So I ran up to the fence, and I asked him what it was, and then he started telling me about ham radio. He goes, "Oh, would you like to see the radios?" I was like, "Sure." And walked in, and my eyes were like this. I don't remember if it was Collins gear, like what's behind me, or if it was Heathkit. All I know is it was a big station, and there was a lot of equipment there. And he told me, about ham radio, and that was it. Oh crap!
What happened?
Did I get lost again?
No, you're good. You're still good. You're okay. He might have dropped off again. We'll have him come back. He's been having some internet connectivity issues. Thank you very much to Rob, November 8, Papa, Sierra Papa. He says, don't be down. You're never alone. We are Hamley. That is the truth. And I think that's part of the reason where I needed to get back to it. And it wasn't even just to sit and make contacts. It's to kind of do this, to check in, to have fun, have a laugh. And, just being a dude, you got 2 young kids. You knew you had to produce. You knew you're doing what you're doing. You got to get back out there, and you need to start earning. The fact that other people were not quick to move on that was a bit harder for me. Different look for you guys, and I can give you my story a little bit about how I found amateur radio, and it comes from my father. It comes from probably the mid to late 70s. There was a CB craze going on here in America, and he was interested in that sort of stuff. He had a big sort of quad. I don't know what kind of quad it was, but it had 4 sections, 2 in the middle, 2 on the outside, and they were like triangles, right? Somebody knows what kind of quad this is, but it was for a CB radio. Dad was not a licensed ham radio operator, but he was a CB guy, and he was interested in emergency communications. So I remember specifically being really enthralled by the fact that there was an immediacy to his D104. He would crack the D104, and he could talk to somebody on the fly, going through town, that kind of thing. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I always thought radio was interesting, generally. Broadcast stuff. I was constantly taping things off the air, that kind of stuff. And in CB, you could get a handle, and all that kind of stuff. My father was a sheet metal guy. So his handle was Tin Man. And so one night, a little girl got lost in Baltimore, and we lived pretty close to where the zoo, the Baltimore Zoo, is pretty close to where we lived. And this little girl got lost, and I remember my father and a few of his friends, like we would do here if we were all together in the same place. CB radio is 3 to 5 miles, maybe at best, covered the area, and they kind of put together this emergency response team of neighborhood people on CB. We went out in a van, his van, and we'll come back to Steve's too, because he kind of dropped out in part of his story. But Dad took us out in a van. We were in an Econoline van. I remember it. And they were working on, checking different streets, and they were narrowing this sort of approach to finding this child, who I think was 8 or 9 years old, which wasn't much older or younger than I was. And I thought, man, this is crazy. The sun went down. They're talking. There's coordination. And I remember being really hooked, like, this is cool. It took me a long time after that to become a licensed ham radio operator, but I did. 2012. But that radio experience sent me into broadcasting, and it always planted the seed. So Dad gets the assist there for just wanting to do the right thing with a kid who's lost. And, at the zoo, it was very scary at the time because kids would get, they'd climb the rocks by the zoo and some of them would fall into these cages. There were polar bears and kids had been killed. So they didn't really play around with that as citizens and they went out to find this kid. And I remember the call when they got her. They found her at such and such place, but they were really like, it's not technically triangulation, Steve. It's just kind of narrowing down a map. I don't know what you'd call it, but they had worked these checkpoints and
they did like a search grid. They did a grid and off they went.
It was super cool, and that's kind of how I got hooked. And it took me a while to get to you guys, 2012, but I'm glad that I found you guys because, like our friend says back here, Rob, November 8th, Papa, Sierra, Papa, don't be down. You're never alone. We are Hamley. You got your people. I found my people. Mm-hmm. So, Steve, your friends told you don't go to the man and ask him anything. What happened?
And I did. Yeah, that's so and then when he showed me his station, and it was like, I don't know if it was Collins gear, like what I have behind me, or the Heath kit. It was this massive gear. He told me what ham radio was about and what he did with it, and it was like from there on I was hooked. I didn't tell him that I was hooked. I was like, oh, that's neat, that's cool, that's And then off we went, and then over the years I found out more about it, and then it was like, oh, geez, the Morse code, that's the hard part. And then CB kind of came along and kind of got into that, and that kind of took care of a little bit of the need, but it wasn't all there. But always had an amateur radio in the back of my mind, and then by 16, I just got the code down, took a class, and learned code, got my novice, and then it's been ever since then. So it's been a great journey. I've enjoyed it. Been active all this time with a little bit of downtime here and there, but never walked away from it completely or anything. Was always was involved with it in some way or one form or another. And but like these last few months, getting on once a week is still getting on once a week. And so I fortunately didn't walk away from it completely. It's real easy to do. And a lot of folks have, we talked about earlier that they, life comes along. They, a lot of times people get their ticket while they're in college, and then they start a career, they start a family, and they just, focus in on that, and then the hobby just kind of takes the back seat. But it's always here. We're here. We'll always be here, and that's what makes this hobby great.
Just to recap, Steve says getting on once a week is still getting on. Already with this, I thought she was off. I mean, that's good ratio. That's good ratio there. He's talking about getting on. Anyway, Steve, I'm guessing that this happened for you licensing in the 70s. Is that right?
Yeah. 76 is when I got my ticket.
Perfect. Okay, so because there was a huge CB craze that kind of was happening parallel to this time. Now, hams have been kicking it and loving it for a long time before this now, but Hollywood sort of helped this sort of Smokey and the Bandit and Good Buddy and all these things going on.
Convoy was the other
Convoy, right. The beauty of radio. Yep. So, and I was just watching last night with my girls, some sort of Jurassic Park, whichever one. There's a zillion. Radio saves the day. She kind of gets in there and makes a call to open up the T-Rex thing. I'm like, did you notice that radio has played an important role in this whole movie, this whole radio contact? But the point about the 70s was I remember my dad fell into the CB craze, and it was right around that time. It was in the pictures and all this. What was the feeling, if you can remember a feeling at all, this sort of parallel world of amateur radio being one thing, and of course CB radio kind of coming up too. You know, they were running together at one point, and CB arguably is still around, but the shine of it, you know, back in the 70s was a little bit more. Do you remember that time period?
Oh yeah, it was. It was a lot of people made a lot of friends, but it was kind of like a so. To me, CB was kind of here, and amateur radio was up here, and it was that stepping stone. And there was, I mean, a lot of hams looked down on CB operators, and I was on the receiving end of that a lot. Oh, you came from CB? Oh, that's not real radio. It's like whatever, dude. And it was one of those that. To me, it was radio. We did the same thing. People tried to work DX on CB. I remember when they would, hey, the skip is open and skip playing. And the methodology and how they did it and the terminologies that were used was different. But when you really look at it, it was the same. It was just how it was done. It was like, the Brits drive have right-hand steering on their cars, and we have left-hand steering on our cars.
Still a car.
Still in cars. Yeah. We're still going down the road, but you know, CB does it a little bit different than amateur radio, but it's all one and the same. And but it got me being on CB, got me really, really comfortable being on the microphone, being on the air. So my transition into the amateur world was pretty easy, which in turn helped when I was double issued that call, and all hell broke loose for a few years when I ran. There was two of us in the LA County that had the same call, and it was just one of those deals. And had I not had that experience and time and probably a little bit of tough skin, I probably wouldn't have been in the hobby. I would have just said F it and walk away, because I don't want to deal with the BS where I just stood my ground, and it was one of those. It was just one of those deals. But I have no ill will on anyone that came up from CB. I think it's a great medium. It's a great place to start. Get your feet wet, learn about radio propagation, everything, and then if you want to get into the hobby, even better. And I see it as we're the major leagues here in amateur radio communications, and CB is the farm league. So that's the way I view it.
And I think it's worth noting to anybody who comes along new, we meet new people, new hams all the time are coming in, and this just happens to be a really good. I'm completely biased, but I think this is a good show for newer hams. And what happens is the new hams stick around, they get experience, and they give back. And that's my experience. I was new at one point, didn't know my ass from my elbow. Found out quick, though. That's a whole plumbing issue. Rewind, go back, and you'll find out how they work differently. But I think the tone was set long ago when I got on HF, and my Elmer came from CB. Steve came from CB. My father came from CB. So I never had this sort of, and I know it exists because Lord knows when you turn on the radio, you'll hear somebody have an opinion about CBers and how CBers came in and what they have to do. But we never really took a position where it was less than, we're just people, right? You know, if anything, we'd say, get licensed, get licensed in the amateur bands and watch what happens. The world opens up to you, where you're in a 3 or 5 mile. You think that's cool, which it is. Imagine 1,000 miles, so it's a different approach. And because I'm kind of rooted in it, that I don't look at it as being less than. But I do agree. I think it's a commitment to become an amateur radio operator with the FCC licenses. And then you get into just opinions, and there's a zillion of them out there of the test and when Steve became licensed in the code. And he might be trying to get called out right now. Look at that. See that? how come? Let me ask you a question. And this is to our community, though. But what is it? GMRS, right? This is the one where families can communicate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't give them grief.
It's UHF
right?
based, and you require a license.
It does. Okay, that does. And is there one that doesn't? And I'm confused.
CB doesn't require a license now. It
Right.
used to,
But
not anymore.
isn't there another family thing that people can talk on?
FRS.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
The Family Radio Service, and that's UHF, and those are like little half-watt, commonly referred to as blister pack radios. You get them in a blister pack, and those don't require a license, but they're low-power UHF handhelds. So, like if you're at the zoo, as you were describing, talking about the zoo. And the family kind of splits up. Okay, this group's going to go over here. We want to go see the monkeys. No, we want to go see the elephants. And then the two groups kind of split up. At least there's a way to coordinate and say, hey, we're going to meet over at the zebras and exhibit and go from there. So there's FRS.
Thanks to James. He put a Q in front of his question. That makes it easier for me to spot as well. Appreciate that. He must be thinking along my track. He says, do you think GMRS is the new CB radio? He's Kilo Golf 5, Lima Tango Lima. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it. It just helps me pull them. And then when Scotty's here, he can see him as well. What do you think?
Actually, it is kind of CB. It falls under the citizen band rules. It's Class A CB, where 11 meters was Class D. And it's been around for many years, and now you can utilize repeaters, and GMRS utilizes some of the same frequencies that FRS uses. So there's kind of where they're kind of intertwined between them a little bit, but then there's some separation between the two, and you can run more power with GMRS. But there's a lot of people. There's quite a few here in Central Washington that are they're licensed amateur radio operators, and I hear them talking about it on the 2-meter repeaters, and they're talking about their exploits on GMRS or their nets or this or that. And it's me being a smart ass, I want to sit there and get in there and go, well, why are you talking about it here on ham radio? Why don't you go talk about it on GMRS? But it's a radio service. They're enjoying the hobby their way, and I'm just being a smart ass, and I usually keep my opinions to myself. But it's quite popular around here.
All right, very good. I'll take this brief interlude to let you know about Bioenno Power, the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios. They've been a sponsor of ours for several years now, and they have remained consistent. When some come in and out, they're here for a while, and they're just like, yep, same as last time. That's the thing. Whenever it gets to the end, they're like, yep, same as last time. And frankly, they don't understand why all amateur radio, oh man, it's another topic. We should get into it. Check out Bioenno Power, BIOENNO Power.com, and do a search. And if you are a member of 100 Watts in a Wire, you can get a discount on products from Bioenno Power, MFJ. I've got news about MFJ too, Steve. I don't know if you've heard, but you probably have, because you've got them big ass ears, and those ears are like, I can hear everything. Radio waves, NI4L antennas. So if you become a member and it's the end of the year, good time to start your membership. Pastor Joe just wrote me and he reminded me, he's like, time to re-up. It's the end of the year. He's an end of the year guy. Sends me his dough and he's set back up for the next year. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/100watts or go to our website, 100wattsinawire.com. Look for the Buy Me a Coffee tab or link, and become a member and get those benefits. Appreciate that. Bioenno Power is one of those. You know, Steve, there's some cool stories that have come out of CB, and a guy in our own community. You know, I called him Cheesecake Steve. I haven't seen him for a while.
Yeah, we haven't heard from him.
Haven't heard from him. We need to check on him, actually, if anybody knows. Maybe Glenn. Glenn's in Philly, I know. We need to check on Cheesesteak Steve. But he, you know, back in the day, Johnny Cash was a big CB guy. Mm-hmm. And You wouldn't think some of the, you hear about Joe Walsh, or you hear about Ronnie Millsap, even Chet Atkins was a ham. Maybe they listen, maybe they do code, maybe they don't. Johnny Cash was a big CBer, and he had a huge whip on his Cadillac. Anyway, a guy in our community made a contact, and I think he called himself JC. That was kind of the thing. He was sort of still Johnny Cash. But there was a great story out there. We've shared it on the podcast of yesteryear about Johnny Cash making a CB contact with a guy in our community. Super, super cool. It was like after a concert or something cool. And he was like, is this like the JC? And probably like,
Jesus Christ.
Not that one. No, you would have a really big whip to be reaching that guy. But it was Johnny Cash. Kyle says GMRS is great for family camping, reunions, etc. One license for the whole family. Very useful. See if there's some others. Family radio, says Lionel. He's Kilo Juliet 7 Oscar Foxtrot Hotel. Also a member. He became a member. Again, thank you, Lionel. We appreciate you. Steven says his first contact was with a cop on his radio, where the same frequency as California Highway Patrol. And we talked to them from West Virginia. So people chiming in. Big Ben is here. He's very famous or infamous in our community for sending out calendars of dogs taking massive dumps. So
100 watts and a wire.
I pushed the wrong button. Anyway, it all can't be perfect. What are you going to do? It's all going to hell. It's all going to hell in a handbag. That's right. Fat fingered it. Let's take a listen. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it. We plan to be here and do a little net coverage tonight. We'll just need to know where the frequency is for Don, Steve. I don't know. I know you jump right on. I don't know. You're welcome to hang out, or I'll cover you guys doing some stuff for a bit. But there is a net on Sunday night, 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock, actually, Eastern time. So stick around for that. Let's go to the community question thing and see how people became ham radio operators. Farmer Rex says he's always up for learning something new. So he's into that sort of thing. Mark says he's November 4. Mike Delta Romeo. MCOM. MCOM was... Again, going back to the seed. And Steve, I just watched your video because I am re-energized again for our 100 Watts in a Wire YouTube channel. I'm putting up the old videos. I think it was a good resource. We have so many good questions up there. And I'm like, we got to put them back up. If I'd have been a smarter man at the time, I would have just left it alone. Guys, when the S hits the F, just put things down. Just put it down and take a break. Me, I'm pulling plugs. Screw it. Go to hell with everybody. It was like everything. I'm like, and now I'm like, you probably should have kept that up there, dummy. You should have. So now I'm putting it all back. And I came across the video where you and I were talking about emergency communications. And you were telling the story about somebody fat fingering a setting. And it effed up the 911. And I was like, oh, man, I remember that. That was, and you were talking about, I think, that natural disasters may not be the main thing for amateur radio operators anymore. But I'm remembering this video in a great fond way. You were saying we should be in firehouses across the country in case 911 goes down, like this incident you had up there. So, when Mark talking about, I'll give you a chance and I'll breathe here, but I'm getting all giddy because I just posted that and I was like, Steve just talked about the emergency communications and his thoughts. Do you still feel the same, that that's our role?
I still think it's with the way our communications networks are, it's IP-based, it's becoming more and more IP-based. It is so easy with a reconfiguration or an upgrade or something that's going on over here. And what happened in that case, it was the work was being done in the state of Oregon, but it affected the state of Washington. And it's just the way the communications network is set up. But it was a misconfiguration of a router, which killed the 911 system. And that was one of those that it was, fortunately, in this county, our local phone company was quick on the trigger. It's like, oh, we'll just reroute calls. So if someone dialed 911, they rerouted it to the business line. So the downtime was minimal for us in this county where I'm at. But other counties in the state were down. They were down hard. People would dial 911 and it went nowhere. And and that's where I came up with the idea. This would be a great opportunity for if you're involved with your local emergency management. And these are the services that we could provide as a group of amateurs. Is go down to the local fire stations, whether it's a volunteer station or a man station. Mainly the volunteer stations, especially out here in the rural counties. And then we have the AM broadcast stations, we have FM. That information or an Amber Alert can be sent out through the phone system. They can send the message. If you have an emergency, or just get to your local fire station, and there'll be someone there to relay the message. And that's one way. So there's a number of ways we can help, and it just takes coordination and working with the local, EMS the emergency management team in your local, municipality or county, and it just varies from place to place. So I kind of remember that. That was
it's up on YouTube now. It's a good one.
Many hours.
Yeah, that video where I think that's a great idea. I know it's probably complicated. It's probably per space or per station, and you have to have MOUs, and I can see it being complicated, but I think it's a no-brainer, and I think it is a way we can. I wish we could make that happen. I wish there was a way we can make that happen, where it's a national thing. It's just adopt it. Interesting stuff. We could probably get into that a little bit more as we make our way through the new year, because I think emergency communications is such an interesting, or where people were very interested in it. And then we maintain that interest, but we have to find these other things that keep us busy, because it's good that we're not always in an emergency situation. Me here in Florida, my antenna had really gone like, I really need to think about this, because it's not a matter of if, it's when that hurricane's coming. And that's a whole different thing. I mean, let me take another look at some, but I love that idea, Steve. I wish we could help make that happen. That would be so cool to have firehouses with hams that could do this work, and they're just on call. And
you don't have to be in the station. You can just be outside in your car. And all people have to do is just pull up and hey, we got my father or so-and-so family member fell down. They need help getting up. And then that message then can be relayed off to the 911 center, and then the system can get started and get rolling. It's just we're just cutting out the phone line part and just kind of inserting the ham radio part.
Some interesting stories, and I'll share them with you when we do our MCOM show. I'll talk about that. So that's what Mark is into it for. And Brad, he says off-grid communications. Robert, he said, I didn't choose ham radio. It chose me. Mike says, I stumbled into being a shortwave listener as a teen and found that was my happy friend, or is my best friend as a ham. Whiskey November 6, Mike Victor Tango Martin. He taught him a lot, and he was hooked. Through the years, finally learned to code, got his ticket. Mike is Whiskey 6, Mike Victor Tango from Southern California. Paul Brown, he says, my fourth grade teacher got me into electronics. I don't blame you for putting that on Paul. I mean, that's a little dicey there. It's getting a little spicy on New Year's Eve. It led him into playing with CB, which, combined with shortwave listening, got me intrigued with the possibility of taking or talking to people around the world. Steve, we haven't talked about shortwave listening too much, but was that something that you really got into?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed listening to a little shortwave broadcast, and then just kind of dialing around, old analog radio. And then I came across this other stuff. These guys talking back and forth. What is that? And then realized it was ham radio. And based on what I saw, years earlier, then it started to click, and then I had another receiver that I would listen to police and fire calls, and then came across some 2-meter repeaters and guys chit-chatting there, and I think that's when it finally cemented it, and it went from there. Then the CB came along, and then here we are. 40 plus years later.
Shortwave listening. I do like it. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it, and we'll try to get to it. I've got some questions are already in our queue, so we can do that. Top of the hour, we will do a little bit of 100 Watts and Wire Sunday evening live coverage of the net that's happening. So we'll find out where Don is, where Steve goes, hang out for a little bit
after Don. So this time of year, I'm following up Don. So Don does the first hour typically, and then I'll pick it up after him. 20 meters is for the most part done for the evening, and so Don takes up the first hour. The last few weeks, it's worked out pretty good. That Phil would come in right at the top of the hour, and that was our great transition point. Phil would chat with both Don and myself, and then I just continue on after we were done with chatting with Phil.
All right. Don't know where it'll be yet, but we'll find out. Steve will do the second hour. Steve may hang out with me here at 8 o'clock. We'll listen to, we'll take your questions or whatever, and we'll just hang out on this New Year's Eve. Thank you for sharing it with us. Let's do a couple more of these, because I really did make a big deal out of this week, and there's so many great answers. Chris says, well, my first bug with the hobby was when I was around 10 years old, and my uncle had a CB base station. See, another citizen band entry into something I respectfully will say a little more sophisticated, a little more legal. You've got a responsibility when you can put that much power out, when you're making contacts further than your neighborhood. Comes with a deeper responsibility. How about I say it that way? I don't know if that's right or not, but it sounds good. But another one came out of CB. Let's see. And then 22 years ago, I started with my basic license in ham radio, and then got my 5 words per minute CW and got into HF. Rhea. Remember Rhea? Hey, girl.
Hi, Rhea.
Girl, what you doing, girl? Come over here and give me some 2024 love. Her love for electronics and motivation from a teacher. That's how she got in. Mike, MCOM when hunting. Took the drive in 2019 with my technician and eventually got my extra in August of 2022. Nice. He's Whiskey 4. India Sierra Bravo. You're 5'9". Martin says his lack of CB operators, the lack of CB operators on 11-meter band. He's being funny, I think. Mike Whiskey 0 Bravo.
CW operators.
Oscar. Yep. Looks like 7216 is going to be where we are, so we'll take a look at that. Yeah, 7216.
I had a broadcaster earlier. So.
Okay. We try to hang out around the same area, but we may be in different places. Again, if you have questions, Scotty's not here tonight. Steve and I will take some questions in just a minute here. In fact, I think I'm going to pull up this on the radio, see what we can hear. You want to do some questions? We'll take them from anybody who's here in the live show. Remember, you are welcome to join us. Everybody's welcome in this community. It's called 100 Watts and Wire, mainly because many of us start off with a 100-watt radio and a wire in the trio.
There he is.
We'll listen to Steve's audio and so you don't get doubled up. You're listening to Steve, W7UDI's radio in the Pacific Northwest. He's between Seattle and Spokane in a little town called Ellensburg, which he is the mayor.
Drink up.
And people bring him gifts and wine and cheese and beer from far off places. He's right between those two. Ricardo says, Happy New Year, Kilo Victor 4, Oscar, Papa. Hello, Ricardo, down here
Happy
in
New Year, Ricardo.
He's to our east in Orlando. He works on the airplanes and keeps everybody safe. 7216 for those who are with us live. Going to take some questions now. And let's see what we got. Question number 1, suggestion for a first wire antenna about 80 feet of space. So end to end, it looks like 80 feet of space. Any thoughts, Steve?
Dipole. I mean, that's the very first. It's unfortunately, it will put you on one band, but it'll get you this time of year. 40 meters is a great band to be on. And that full length antenna for 40 meters for a halfway dipole is 66 feet. So you got 80 feet there. I just throw that up. Super simple to make. And that just gets you going. And then down the road, you can experiment with an in-fed antenna or an off-center fed dipole antenna. You can start playing around with different antennas. But right off the bat, I'd start off with a 40-meter dipole antenna and go from there.
Okay. Good advice there. And, when I was in the middle of America, Dr. Bob, he would say, this is Bob Heil, and I thought of him yesterday. I don't know if anybody's heard about him or if he's doing okay. I imagine he's got to be 82 or 83 these days, but I haven't seen anybody or you guys. So I thought of him. But he said, his main thing, and he's written it in books, is to put up a 40-meter antenna dipole. And you'll have the band mostly during the day, and at nighttime it'll be there for you until you figure out what you like. So this is to echo what Steve is saying. Interesting, though. Here, it's different. 40 meters, I don't know about Ricardo, but 40 meters during the day, about 11 a.m., Steve disappears. And you're dealing with just, and I guess it's my position in the earth where we're on the earth, where 40 meters just wants to go. But now, evening comes and it's there and strong. I haven't been here long enough to know if this changes at all. But in Missouri, I had 40 meters in the day, it'd be rocking. So it's a different, but I totally agree. 40 meters is the one to go with if that's, and I don't know what would fit off-center fed-wise. I've got one for 40 and 20, but I can't remember how long it is.
It's the same length. An OCF for 40 is still 66 feet. They'll give you a couple more bands, but really to get the 5 or 6 bands, you need a much bigger off-center fed antenna. You need one more cut for 80 meters, and then it will give you the other bands.
Okay. So what's the echo? You guys hear an echo on the stream? No.
It's probably for me.
I don't hear it, but if something's wrong, let's blame Steve. I don't know. Has it been going the whole time? I don't know. I know we had our radios up together, and that would probably cause a little bit of echo. Let's move on. I don't hear it. What was your first DX contact? This is an interesting one and really hard. I don't know if I can. Wow. I might have to answer in a different way. I may have to answer like, it could have been Mexico, but the one I remember the most, the one that made me jump up, was New Zealand on the old Drake TR7 and 100 watts. And this guy did all the lifting. I'm pretty sure of it. To his credit, he worked with me. It was 5:30 in the morning. I was Kilo 0. And at the time, I think I was Kilo Delta 0 Sierra Tango. I was yelling for him, and he pulled me out. But I remember getting it, and I was like, yeah. So I don't know first. It could have been Canada. It could have been Mexico. because I got addicted to 15 meters because 15 meters would be kicking ass. And like early in the morning, it was all over the place back in, 2015 maybe. So do you remember, Steve? And if you can't remember the one, was there one that you remember that was like, hell yeah?
Oh, there was a lot of the de-expeditions I've been like, hell yeah. And early on when I was just running a wire antenna and just a basic radio. So 100 watts wire antenna and just learning how to operate split and then just timing it and getting there. So it took a little bit. Well, those were the ones that were... I kind of got excited. And even as late as when Navasa was on the air a number of years ago, it was, this station that I have here, but I had to get through the wall, the East Coast wall, and it was just brutal. It was brutal. And so I just listened to the operator there, and then he went, took a break for like 5-10 minutes. I left the radio on. I was out in the shop, and then right when he came back on the air, I ran back into here. And I think on my second call, we worked, and then after that, then the floodgates opened up again, and it was like, oh shoot! I was really excited on that one. That was a 15-meter contact, but the first DX contact, that's a tough one. I do remember one, and this was on 2 meters, and I was using a handheld at my the house that I grew up in Pasadena, and I talked to a ham in San Diego, and with a 5-watt handheld with just a rubber ducky on 146.52, and it was like that was over 100 miles, and it was like whoa. So I kind of remember that, but I was 17, 18 at the time when that happened. So, but the first HF DX contact, I'm pulling a blank on that one there.
Okay. All right. So we've given the people more of you. They're getting twice the money from you today. They're getting echo from you. I don't know. And even my drops, they thought that they get double on the Ric Flair. Let me listen. Woo! Let me know if it clears up. I don't know. I'm not sure what that would be, but I apologize. I don't know. I don't hear Steve in an echo. Unfortunately, they're hearing
we were suffering with it earlier, but that was a machine issue on my end.
Yeah, you guys keep us posted. If it does clear up, I'm afraid to push too many buttons while we're live. That could make things a little weird, but let me know. Sidecar doesn't remember his first. Okay. We'll go on. This is Mark. He's just always dirty. Let's see another question. With hope that we don't give you too much echo. How did you do in the 12 days of Christmas?
Busy working. Taking care of the dogs.
Okay. All right.
12 days of Christmas was a blur this year.
I agree. I didn't even remember. I don't think the radio has been turned on much. So I did not work any. And I really want it to, because I think it's a cool event, number one. But I also think that, it's one where you can chase. I like to chase. The chase is kind of cool. And I wanted to hear the Santa net. My girls have kind of come through that whole thing. And my youngest last year, she was 8. She kind of put some things together. And not to throw it out and give anything away. But she kind of could tell differences in the voice. And I was like, okay, well, she's kind of got to the end of it for my girls. But I remember how cool it was making that Santa net contact all those years, as kids. But I didn't make a contact with it. So how did you guys do? I guess we have some folks here. How did you do? Let us know how you did. Thank you for that question. CB question, does anything about CB radio transfer to ham radio?
I think all of it. I mean, it's you're being comfortable on being on the air, and just your style of operating, I think it transfers over to ham radio. The lingo might be a little bit different. What is commonly accepted on the CB radio is generally not accepted on amateur radio, but who cares? But I think the most important part is that you're comfortable, that you're comfortable talking on the radio and have no preconceived notions of hey, that sounds like a different person. I'll go talk to them. And I think that is 100% relative to our here in the hobby. And so I think it's a lot that happens in this hobby of CB radio translates over here into the amateur radio world. A little bit of the lingo stuff and then I might be tonight being accused of having one of those echo mics. Or
yeah, I'm not sure what you're going on. You're making the people crazy.
The reverb mic that I heard on the bands there, but I wouldn't get too spun up over it. I think there's a lot of good people that have started in CB and have came over into the amateur radio ranks. Fine operators, good people, and it's the same old stuff that I heard when we got rid of the code and that was no longer necessary to get your amateur radio ticket. That was going to be the downfall of ham radio, and it's not. It's not. Sorry, guys. There's guys in my generation that still think that the eliminating the code was the worst thing for the hobby, and sorry, it was the best thing that happened for the hobby. So
it definitely grew the hobby, and if we were just, it goes back to being an ideal type thing. I mean, it's the quality of the ham, right, or the quality of the CB operator. It's the quality of the operator that needs to transfer. We would probably look at each other differently if we could stop. I don't know. There's D-bags on both sides, and they snipe at each other. They snipe at us. They snipe at each. It's always a constant thing. Where for me, radio is like radio, and I get they have limitations, and they can get it all kind of for free or whatever. But like you said, I think some really great ham radio operators have come out of CB radio or did it. They did it and or do it. And it might get a little bit deeper than that. I think there's a lot of people in the prepper world, which I think we have that element here in our community. There are some preppers. There's some people who like to keep their guns clean, like to shoot them, and like to take target practice. I'm pointing at you, Steve. There are people that like to stock their pantry and be prepared and do all these things. But there's also some of those people who are doing CB radio just as a tool in their toolbox. And there's not a lot of interest in growing it. It's like if the S hits the F, I'm calling mama on this. You know what I mean? And it's kind of it's a tool. It's not a passion, super interest. It's just another thing in that kit. That makes sense. So I don't know. I'd like to treat each other better. I got a special report.
100 watts and a wire news.
And you let me know if that doubled. You hear Earl's voice double time, you let me know. But live
I heard some reverb on Earl, which is like fantastic. Earl sounds good with reverb.
Did he double? He didn't double up.
No, just reverb.
Let's go live to the Browns Hotel. Let's see. Mark is at the Browns. He's been there. New Year's Eve reporter. Take it away, Mark. Okay, that was great. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was good. The Browns is an interesting place. All right, so we're not doubling on Earl and Mark's report. What was that? I got it. I got it. Still early on the East Coast. I'm surprised. Okay. All right. I love that little drop there. We have time for another. Actually, the net is actually going on. Let's see what you hear. Does my radio sound double up to you guys? What I'm doing is troubleshooting to see if it's on me or it's Steve. Are you feeding that in there? You are feeding it in there. You're polluting the water.
Yeah, I just brought it up. I just potted it up.
All right, so we got Steve's audio up now. Does that sound doubled?
Yeah, 7.
All right, you lower yours. I'm going to bring my audio up a little bit. All right, here's my radio. Let me know what you're hearing. It's all good. Just a test. We're going to figure it out. It's been 6 months, guys.
It's a test of the emergency broadcast system. If this had been an actual test, you would have been instructed to put your head between your legs and kiss your butt goodbye.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so that's just my radio. That's the net is going on. We didn't have Don call in, so we can just listen to him. Let's see if there's any other questions. There is a queued up question that I have for Steve. We can talk about. Here's a good one. There's a good one. We could wrap that on. Ham radio plans for 24.
Yeah.
Were there anything you didn't get to do that you might have wanted to do in 2023 that you're looking to do next year?
I have to reposition my beam. I have to climb the tower, and the wind is my beam antenna is out of alignment, so to speak. So I have to realign it. So that's the latest. And then I have some antenna projects I want to start tackling. And I've rebuilt the 40 double bazooka. Now I'm thinking about possibly might have to it might be a good time to rebuild the 80. Looking at maybe trying to play with some other antennas like a delta loop and a few odds and ends. And if I really get ambitious, I got another 90 feet of towers sections to maybe get that up in the air. So we'll see.
Yes, that would be sexy, man. For me, I like to get back on the air, making those little snap off. I used to love coming in, hearing a station far away. Maybe I didn't have it, or something like that, and trying, or working split. Just to do it, just to try to keep my mind fresh on how to operate the radio, working split, that kind of deal. Maybe participating in the nets, getting in there and doing it a little bit more. But, now that things are going to settle off for me, I'm going to come back to it. I'll be out more, and I'll think maybe on lunch, I'll stop and activate either a park or just drive close to the water, So more operating is on the docket, and then seeing what the house situation will be here. Lady owns the house. Long story short, she wants to sell the house. Property down here, it's a terrible time to buy a house. Certainly in Florida and Southwest Florida, but maybe across the board. And I've been in no position to be able to buy a house. So if she finds a buyer, what's going to happen? Do I need to move again? I don't know. We're back in that boat. It could be 6 months to finish out this lease. It could be like, they're buying it. You got a couple months. Go ahead. And so we'll kind of see what my shack will look like, So it's kind of like that. But I do plan on being back here more with Steve and Scotty and everybody else, minus the echo and
reverb
and the reverb, whatever's going on. So that was great. If you have a question, we are in overtime now. We will wrap up the show and take a little break so these old timers can take a leak and refresh the brewski. We'll be around through this hour. We'll hang out. If Steve wants to hang out, we can chat with you guys. Steve, if you want to feed audio, you're welcome to do that. I'll wrap up the podcast here by thanking everybody. Don't leave if you're here. You don't have to. But our listening audience, we appreciate you. Remember now, we try to do this on Sundays, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And you're welcome to join us. Everybody is welcome. You can come and hang out. Say hello in the chat. Good people here. Ask questions. That's all that great stuff. So a little bit of fireworks here in Southwest Florida. I forgot we're going to hear some.
Starting here in a few hours.
Yeah, hopefully no fires. So good luck the rest of the way. Thanks for hanging out with us. here on New Year's Eve. Best of luck for you and your family as you head into 2024. Steve, thank you so much for being a friend. We appreciate you. Cue the music. Who sang that song? It's like, thank you for being a friend. Dun, 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 dun. That's the one that'll be stuck in your heads for a while. You're welcome.
Damn.
Any parting words for 2023, Steve?
See you later, 2023. You've been an interesting one this year.
Been interesting, and that doesn't necessarily mean good.
It's been we've had our ups and downs in 2023, and looking forward to 2024. It's nothing but up, and it's looking forward to a great upcoming year, and looking forward to for everyone here in the Hamley, and just I want to wish everyone the best of 2024 to you and your families, and come along and join us on the ride, because 24 is going to be a fun one.
Definitely. Good luck the rest of the way, everybody. People who are live, just hang around. Give us a couple of minutes. We'll reset. We'll come back, listen to Don. We'll pull it off of Steve's radio. And you listen to that. We'll be back in a couple minutes for the live coverage. Take care of yourselves and look after each other as best you can. And by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise. 73 to our listening audience.
7-3, everyone.
7-3, everybody. 7-3.
Bye-bye.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsinawire.com.